Mheshimiwa, welcome. Yesterday, you voted yes to the finance bill, and that thing has elicited a lot of reaction, especially from the people of Northern Kenya. I know you represent Mandera South, but why have you voted yes?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. It is true indeed. I am among the 204 MPs that voted yes yesterday. And it is also good to put into perspective what exactly were we voting for yesterday. You know, there's a lot of confusion out there. What we were voting for actually, during the budget making process, actually there is the recommendations that come from the plans or the recommendations that come from the executive. And the Treasury normally sends its recommendations of how they think the government programs that have been appropriated for, the government programs in security, in education, in water, in roads, and all the other sectors that have been appropriated for by the House, how those government programs can be funded, how that money can be generated. Usually the government has avenues of borrowing money internally, borrowing money externally, and at the same time, the government also can generate some money from taxes. And when the Treasury presented those proposals to the Parliament, according to the standing orders and the laws of the land, the Parliamentary Committee on Finance and National Planning had to look at it and also do what we call public participation for that program. And it is during the public participation process. The Finance Committee, the Finance and Planning Committee sat with 183 stakeholders, including some of them professional organizations, including individuals, including banks, including even some departments of the government like ministries. I even saw the KDF presented its memorandum to the Committee of Finance. And when these public participate in that process, they look at the bill, the finance bill that has been prepared, that has been presented to Parliament by the Treasury, and look at those areas which the government has said is going to use to generate taxes and other incomes, and see whether those areas are good for the country, whether there are some issues which are challenging, and then the public give their views. And that is what happened. The Finance Committee went for the public participation, and they came back to Parliament with the findings from the public participation. So after listening to the public, they also had their recommendations. They had their findings, and also they had their recommendations. And those are the recommendations that actually are in Parliament now as a report of the Finance Committee. The proposals they received from Treasury and the report from the public participation and what they are recommending going forward. So what the recommendations actually impact on the public, impact on the finance bill. And for the finance bill now to go to the third reading or the committee of the whole House, it had to be voted for so that it can go to that stage. And what we were doing yesterday is to look at the public finance bill 2024 as it was presented to Parliament, and vote for it to go to the second reading and go to the committee of the whole House on Tuesday, so that we can vote for the clauses in the finance bill clause by clause. We will be moving from one clause to the other, and when we agree with that clause, we agree with it. If we don't agree, people can recommend the amendments. Members, there are quite a number of members who have given in notice for putting amendments to the finance bill provisions, and these members are from across both the Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio, and that is the normal procedure. So what we were voting for yesterday was not the passage of finance bill. Finance bill has not yet passed. What we were actually moving to the second stage or to the next stage of the committee of the whole House, which will be on Tuesday, so that we can look at clause by clause to recommend amendments, was the finance bill. But now we are sending it to the committee of the whole House so that it can be open to amendments. And that is exactly what we did yesterday. So there are some Kenyans who think, or some people who think, that the finance bill has been passed and that is it. All the recommendations in it, you know, the recommendations on the 16% VAT on bread, the recommendation on motor vehicle, the recommendation on all the other things that they have read in the news and they have listened to the news and have already passed, and there is no going back to it. That is far from it. Actually, some of us who voted yes yesterday, we voted on condition that the recommendations for amendment as proposed in the report of the Finance Committee is going to be done on Tuesday. And if there is no amendments that are going to be done on Tuesday on those clauses which are offensive to the people that we represent, we are definitely going to vote no on that bill. And that is what is going to happen on Tuesday. So for you to know exactly what has been voted for, yes or no, you could not know it from yesterday's passage of that bill. You can know it from Tuesday when we go clause by clause, because when it talks about 16% VAT on bread, we'll discuss that on its own, and people will put in their amendments. There are those who say the 16% should go, like me, so that the status quo in terms of what we are buying bread at now remains the way it is. And that is where we are heading to next week on Tuesday. And that is where you will actually know what is the real position of your member of parliament on finance bill. Has he voted for issues that are affecting you as a citizen of that constituency, or has he removed, or through amendments, has he supported amendments even by other members, which is actually friendly to the constituents? And that is what I wanted to communicate to our constituents, so that they can know on Tuesday is actually the real day you need to watch the proceedings of Parliament, because that is where the amendments are going to be carried. That is where we are going to have, actually normally on Tuesday we have one session of the afternoon, but this Tuesday we have already passed a motion in the House, and they are going to have a sitting both in the morning and in the afternoon, so that we can give this finance bill discussion a fair time and enough justice, so that every member can interrogate what clause by clause that goes out. I have already shared on my social media pages this morning, on the areas which I think are offensive in the finance bill, and I am going to look at the section on the areas which I think are offensive, particularly when it comes to the nitty-gritty that affects directly my constituents. I feel that the 16% VAT on bread that has been recommended in the finance bill is offensive, because bread is a food that is consumed by many Kenyans, and a lot of my people also consume bread, and any addition of VAT on that will hike the cost of bread. And that is why I think that recommendation on 16% VAT on bread should be removed completely from the finance bill. That is one area I'm going to focus on Tuesday as we go there. There is 16% VAT on transportation of sugarcane. That also needs to go. Some people may wonder, we don't produce sugarcane in Mandera. Why am I concerned about 16% VAT on sugarcane? The reason why I'm concerned about 16% on sugarcane transportation is because sugarcane is used to make sugar. And when you have 16% VAT on the transportation of sugarcane from the farm to the factory, once they produce that sugar, they will transfer that cost to the consumer. And therefore the price of sugar will go high, even though we don't grow sugarcane and we don't transport sugarcane in Mandera, but the sugar that comes out of the sugarcane will reach us, and that is how I think it will affect us, and that is why I say the 16% VAT on the transportation of sugarcane must also go. I also think that 16% VAT that the finance bill had recommended to be imposed on financial services like M-Pesa and Hawalas, so that they are taxed more, is also going to make the cost of transferring money through the financial institutions that we have more expensive, and it will affect my constituents, because my constituents have people in the diaspora, they have people in Nairobi, they have people all over the world who contribute or send money to them, or they send money to them, and if these money transfer companies, institutions like Hawalas and M-Pesa shops are taxed, then we will definitely have higher cost of transferring money from one person to the other, and that is why I think that area is also very important for me. And I also think the recommendations in the finance bill on the mobile phone, mobile phone transfer and internet costs, that one I also think should go, because it will make the cost for making telephones and also transferring money through mobile phones, and also using internet. Especially, we have a bulging youth population in the whole country, and particularly in my constituency. I know I have a big youth population. If the cost of transferring money through mobile phone, or if the internet costs go higher, definitely they will be affected, because it will translate in what they pay for their tokens and for their airtime. And I also think the 2.5% on the motor vehicle tax is affecting every Kenyan, and it's also affecting my constituents because they also own cars. And I think that was far-fetched, because a vehicle is not an income. And the finance bill was considering vehicle as an income to be taxed at 2.5%. People have already paid tax for motor vehicles when they purchase their motor vehicles. And that's an area which I'm also focusing on as an area of my interest. I think the other area which I think must also be removed from the finance bill is the area of the excise duty on edible oils and eco levy on plastic materials that are locally manufactured. You see, if you levy some tax on plastic materials that are used to contain oil, which we use for cooking, that cost will translate to the price of oil, and therefore I'm saying that one also needs to go, so that that price of oil does not go up. For the employed people in my constituency, especially those who are paying NSSF, NHIF, and the housing levy, the good news is that now all the three funds, the NSSF, NHIF, and NSSF, have been made into tax deductible. We are recommending, that it becomes a tax deductible item. When we talk about that tax deductible item, it means their cost will be deducted from the gross salary before even taxation, so that when the government calculates the tax on your salary, you will be paying lesser tax than you are paying now. And at the long of the day, in the long run, you will be able to pay the cost for the NHSF, NHIF, and the housing levy, but at the same time have some little extra income on your salary than you have today. And that is something that I think is a recommendation that we must take forward. And of course, when it comes to the pensioners, a lot of people who have retired and they are receiving pensions, there is a ceiling on the minimum on which there is exemption for taxing the money that the pensioners receive, and that currently it is pegged at 20,000. We want to move that one at 30,000, so that the pensioners have more money. Threshold for which they can be taxed is higher than it is now. My constituents, Kenyans, fellow Kenyans, we've heard you. I know there are those of you who really would have wanted a rejection of the entire bill, so that we go fresh back to the drawing board. We looked at that option also, and we thought that option could also be dangerous in two ways. One, the guys in the Treasury who gave their recommendations in the first place on this finance bill which we are dealing with will be the same guys who will bring back other recommendations, and definitely they may even bring much more worse recommendations than they have already brought to us. And because of the time frames in terms of the budget making process is not a process that needs to go on indefinitely. It's a process that is time bound, both in terms of standing orders of parliament and also in terms of the law and the constitution. And there are certain periods within which we have to complete with the budget making process, so that those budgets which have been appropriated and the government can run its program as scheduled. So returning it back will put us in a quagmire in terms of how we will. But the best way to deal with this is you look at the bill and all those offensive clauses which affect our people, we remove them from, and that is what we are going to do on Tuesday. And so I want to allay any fears that Kenyans and particularly my constituents may have in terms of worrying about the finance bill having passed in its punitive form. I can assure you it is not going to pass in that punitive form. And if anybody tries to pass it in that punitive form, I promise you, a member of parliament will definitely no vote at that stage. But the stage yesterday was just to allow this bill to go through the normal process, come to the stage where we can now do amendments on it, and then work with it from there. At the end of the day, with all those amendments, we'll still again vote on the bill. And if the issues that I've talked about have not been considered in the final finance bill which we are going to amend, I will definitely assure you all those offensive things, if one of them appears there, I will vote no against it. The other reason why I can tell my constituents why I voted for this bill, so that we amend it and we quickly do with it, so that we let the government fund its program, is because one, budget 2024-25 is promising money for us to recruit 46,000 JSS teachers. You know, the teacher problem we have, particularly in Northeastern, is a huge issue. And now we have, the government is saying it will give us money, 18.5 billion to recruit 46,000 JSS junior secondary school teachers on permanent and pensionable basis. And additionally, the government is giving us more money to recruit another 20,000 junior secondary school teachers, so that we can have about 66,000 junior secondary school teachers. That will help this country in a big way to reduce the chaos that we see in the education sector, especially with the new CBC system that we are now experimenting with. The other thing is that for pastoralists, particularly from northern Kenya, those people who really had suffered drought and also suffered the El Nino floods recently, and they have lost their livestock, the government is putting in 1 billion Kenya shillings for restocking of some livestock which were lost during that period. So this money is appropriated in the bill. There is a good promise that there is going to be an additional 15 billion on the CDF kitty. You know, the CDF board is going to have an extra 15 billion, which they will distribute to all the constituencies in the country, and which means the amounts that we have been having for the NGCDF now will go up. And if they go up, that means we'll be able to serve our people more, we'll be able to construct more classrooms, we'll be able to construct more police stations, we'll be able to construct more chief offices, and we will be able to run some development projects using the CDF kitty and at the same way the women rep have been given 500 million extra in the NGAF program, and that is also a good thing. We've all, like in my constituency, one big problem I have is electricity. The government has appropriated 50 million per constituency to be able to light villages that have no electricity in our constituencies. I think that is money that I would not like to see miss in my constituency because of a few wrangles here and there. So looking at the amendments we are going to do and looking at what we expect to have in the budget that will help our people, I thought it will not make sense throwing and rejecting the entire bill the way it was, but to amend the offensive parts so that we can continue with the good parts and build this country. Thank you.